In the word problem, let me zoom out so we can read it. We're going to paint a room, all right? Amy can paint a loft apartment in 7 hours. Jeremy can paint a loft apartment of the exact same size, but it takes him 9 hours. He's a little slower when he paints. If they work together, how long is it going to take them to paint a third loft apartment of the same size? This is a really neat problem. Now what you should understand is a lot of students will try to tell me that it's going to take them 8 hours. They say, well, if it takes Amy 7 and it takes Jeremy 9, then we just average it and it should take them 8 hours. But that's not the case, guys. If Amy's doing it alone in 7 hours, Jeremy's going to help her speed up. He's going to take some of her work. So it's going to be below 7 hours. I really like to make a chart. It helps me a lot. In fact, in Algebra 2, we're doing this right now. You should kind of understand that your rate times your time doesn't equal your distance. It could equal your work. Like how fast you do something times how long you take, or how long you do that, it's going to equal the work that gets done. So we have Amy and we have Jeremy. Now for rate, in these problems, in work problems, and in fact really in a lot of problems, all problems, rate is a fraction. Just even like driving, you might not think driving, even though that's a rate, you might think that's not a fraction, but it really is. Like 70 miles per hour is 70 over 1. These are just going to look a little different. Amy can paint, ready, 1 room in 7 hours. That's her rate. Jeremy can paint 1 room in 9 hours. Time, capital T, is time together. So when we're talking about our chart here, we're going to keep this capital T as a capital T because that's unknown. T is their time together. If they work together, they're going to be the same. So the work done is the multiplication of these. So 1 over 7 times T is T over 7. 1 over 9 times T is T over 9. Now we want them to complete 1 apartment. So I'm going to set my equation equal to 1. So I take Amy's work plus Jeremy's work, and together we add them up. Together they're going to paint 1 apartment. My common denominator is 7 and 9. What's common between 7 and 9? 63. So I'm going to multiply by 63. No variables, huh? Distribute that in. Remember, this is called clearing your fractions. You guys love to clear your fractions. This 7 cancels and it becomes 9. This 9 cancels and it becomes 7. And this needs a 63. 9t plus 7t equals 63. 9 plus 7 is 16t equals 63. Divide by 16. And since we're in a word problem, I'm going to let you use a decimal. You can say that it takes approximately, when you divide it out, 4 hours together. Let's try it again. In problem 3, we have one hose that can fill a pool in 12 hours, and we have another hose that can fill the exact same pool in 8 hours. How long if both of them are filling the pool together? So we have our chart. We have hose 1 and hose 2. This can fill one pool in 12 hours. This one can fill one pool in 8 hours. Time is time together, and work done is the multiplication together. So we do t over 12 and t over 8. They want us to fill one pool, so we do t over 12 plus t over 8 equals 1. Now we need a common denominator. The common denominator between 12 and 8 would be 24, because 12 goes into 24 and 8 goes into 24. The 12 would cancel, and this would need a 2. The 8 would cancel, and that would need a 3. The 1 would cancel, and that needs a 24. So I get 2t plus 3t equals 24. That's 5t equals 24. Divide it out. Your time together is 4.8 hours with both turned on. Okay? Now, one thing that the book doesn't do is they don't give you an example where they actually give you the time together. If they give you the time together, just put it in the chart, and then what they're probably going to ask you is what the time, like somebody alone. So one of these, either 12 or 8 would be X, and then these would be filled in. You just handle it the exact same way. Problem 4. Solving a rational proportion. Now what we're going to do here, guys, is I would like you to continue thinking in terms of what's your common denominator. Technically, all you're going to do is cross multiply, all right, because it's just one thing and the other. But what I'm going to do is I would like to still discuss with you that the common denominator is x plus 1 and x plus 2, or x plus 2 and x plus 1, and I want to multiply by that. Yes, you can just cross multiply, but since we're talking about denominators, let's show you why cross multiplying actually does work. If you distribute this in, that goes away, and the top just needs an x plus 1. Distribute it in here, the x plus 1 goes away, and you need an x plus 2. Guys, that is why cross multiplying works. So you get 4 times x plus 1 equals 3 times x plus 2. And now you have a basic algebra problem where you distribute in. 4x plus 4 equals 3x plus 6. You solve and you get x equals 2. You should check it back in, which it does check back in, and you'd be all done. Let's try that one more time. The common denominator in got it 4a is the two different denominators that you see. So you would multiply by the common denominator of b plus 2 and b minus 2. You would notice that this b plus 2 goes away and you would be left with b minus 2. This b minus 2 would go away and you'd be left with b plus 2. And that's why cross multiplication actually works. So you get 3 times b minus 2 equals 5 times b plus 2. And you get 3b minus 6 equals 5b plus 10. You get 2b equals negative 16 when you switch things around. Be very careful with that, okay? That was a poor part on our test, was being able to solve when variables are both sides. Subtract 3b to get 2b, subtract 10 to get negative 16. b equals negative 8. You check it back in, you will notice that you do get a true solution. Now we're going to do part B because part B is a little more difficult at the very end. Your common denominator, just like it has been, is made up of the things that are different. So 3 and x, or c minus 4. So that's what we're going to multiply by. 3 and c minus 4. This 3 would go away, and you would need a c minus 4. This c minus 4 would go away, and you would need a 3. So when I bring things down, I get c times the quantity of c minus 4 equals 3 times 7, or 21. That's c squared minus 4c equals 21. And you should now see why this problem is a little more difficult. you have a c squared, so you need to set it equal to 0. So I'll do c squared minus 4c minus 21 equals 0. That's c minus 7, c plus 3 equals 0, so I factored. And now you finish by setting them equal and solve. So you get c equals 7 and c equals minus 3. You should always go back through, check them both in. You may come across a problem where they don't check in. They're both answers, they both do plug back in, and I would really suggest that you take a moment, pause the video, and definitely try and understand that. Alright, if you don't understand that, please ask tomorrow how to check. Problem 5. As we move on to problem 5, I'm going to show you how to check for what we call an extraneous solution, and that's just how we've been checking. You plug it back in, you see which ones work. Now what I'm going to do with you on problem 5 is not find a common denominator. All I'm going to do is I'm going to cross multiply, okay? Now I have not done that yet. That's what the book was encouraging us to do over here. They wanted us to just cross multiply. I want to give you a big hint. If you cross multiply, you actually make this problem a lot more difficult than it is. If you were to find the common denominator, it would make it easier. If you want me to explain that more tomorrow, please ask. So let's go ahead and cross multiply and get 6 times x plus 5 equals x plus 5 times x plus 3. And you can only cross multiply if it's two fractions equal to each other. So you get 6x plus 30 equals x squared plus 3x plus 5x plus 15. When you have an x squared, you set it equal to 30, or excuse me, set it equal to 0. So that means 6x comes over and 30 comes over. So you get 0 equals x squared. Now let's put all the x's together. 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 minus 6 is plus 2x. 15 minus 30. 15 minus 30 is negative 15. Get your double parentheses ready to factor now. X plus 5, x minus 3. You have to remember how to factor. And solve each one. If you solve the first one, you get x equals negative 5. Solving the second one, you get x equals positive 3. Now what we need to do is check both of those answers back in. If you want to take a moment, pause the video and see which one you think doesn't check in, go ahead and do so. Otherwise, just keep following along. So here's my original. Let's try plugging in negative 5. So I do 6 over negative 5 plus 5 equals negative 5 plus 3 over negative 5 plus 5. Can you see how my denominators would be 0? Denominators are never allowed to be 0. So 5 is what we call extraneous. So I put an X through it. 5 is extraneous. Now let's check 3. To check 3, you do 6 over 3 plus 5 equals 3 plus 3 over 3 plus 5. You should notice both of those are going to be 6 over 8, which reduced to 3 over 4. So they're both correct. So 3 is the only solution. Now had you done that the other way, you would have got only 3 as an answer. You would have never even had to have bothered with negative 5. Let's do got it number 5 now. And we're going to get our common denominator, but before we do that, let's factor the bottom left. Do you guys notice how that one factors? X plus 2, x minus 2. And that's going to be key for you to try to remember. Always check to see if things factor. Now that I have my denominators factor, I can see that my common denominator, I'm not going to cross multiply, everybody. I will not cross multiply in this problem. I'm going to go back to just getting my common denominator and multiplying by it. I see my common denominator is x plus 2 and x minus 2. These would both cancel out, and you would simply bring down your x minus 4. Equals. On this one, just the x minus 2 would cancel, and you would bring down negative 2 and x plus 2. If you cross multiplied, you would have a much longer problem, and you would get more answers that need checked. So I'm going to stick with what we were doing on the other page. So x minus 4 equals negative 2x minus 4. Add, you get 3x. Add, you get 0. X equals 0. Now what we need to do is check that back in. We'll do 0 minus 4 over 0 minus 4 equals negative 2 over 0 minus 2. That's negative 4 over negative 4 and negative 2 over negative 2. Well, those are both equivalent to 1. So 0 is an answer. Now, if you would have cross-multiplied, you would have got 2 answers, and one of them would be extraneous. So what we did is we really helped ourselves out by finding the common denominator and canceling at the beginning instead of having an extraneous answer at the end. That's it. If you have any questions, please go ahead and do some of the lesson check. Ask me any questions that you need to tomorrow.